Hello. Hi. Today we're going to be talking about everything I read in the month of September. This month it's pretty okay. It's pretty good for um the kind of month that it was and just for how busy I am. It's a little difficult keeping up with reading sometimes, with work and everything in between life as a mid 20 something. It can be, it can be like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on. But this month I read 14 books. And I usually start with the ones that I read physically so that I can kind of get that out of the way. But we are going to start with everything I read from the beginning of the month to the end. And I'm going to skip the ones that I have physical copies of because I have a little stack. Books that I read this month were physical. The rest were either on my Kindle or through audiobook. So we're going to start from the beginning of the month. And the first book I read in September was The Mist by Mr. Stephen King, none other than the king of horror himself. And I rated The Mist 4 stars because usually anything I read by Stephen King is a 4 star or more. But so I'm going to read the synopsis from my phone for you. It's a hot, lazy day, perfect for a cookout until you see those strange dark clouds. Suddenly, a violent storm sweeps across the lake and ends as abruptly and as unexpectedly as it had begun. Then comes the mist, creeping slowly and inexorably into town, where it settles and waits, trapping you in the supermarket with dozens of others, cut off from your families and the world. The mist is alive, seething with unearthly sounds and movements. What unleashes this terror? What unleashed this terror? Was it the Arrowhead Project, the top secret government operation that everyone has noticed but no one quite understands? And what happens when the provisions have run out and you're forced to make your escape, edging blindly through the dim light? The Mist. And I think that does good a good job of summarizing the book. I guess it should since it's the blurb. um, but I really enjoyed this book. It was a very quick listen because I did it through audio. And Stephen King, he just has this way with writing that's very urban, but still very smart, very entertaining, and just very easy to get into and get lost in. Um, it's very, dare I say, spellbinding, his writing. So that was The Mist, and that was the first thing I read in September. And then going on up, the next thing I read was Classic Krakauer, After the Fall, Mark Fu's Last Ride, and Other Essays from the Vault, which is just a compilation novel. Well, not novel, because novels are like works of fiction, which is just a compilation of essays written by John Krakauer, by the journalist John Krakauer, um, or articles. And I rated this one 3 stars because I really only enjoyed 3 essays. It was a lot. It was a lot. Just take my word for it. So I'm going to read the blurb. The gripping articles in Classic Krakauer, originally published in periodicals such as The New Yorker, Outside, and Smithsonian, display the singular investigative reporting that made John Krakauer famous and show why he is considered a standard bearer of modern journalism, spanning an extraordinary range of subjects and locations, which is so true. These articles take us from a horrifying avalanche at Mount Everest to a volcano poised to obliterate a big chunk of greater Seattle at any moment, from a wilderness teen therapy program run by the apparent sadists and an otherworldly cave in New Mexico studied by NASA to better understand Mars, from the notebook of one Fred Becky who cataloged the greatest unclimbed mountaineering routes on the planet to the last days of the legendary surfer Mark Fu, rigorously researched and vividly written, marked by an unerring instinct for storytelling and scoop. The pieces in Classic Krakauer are unified by the author's ambivalent love affair with unruly landscapes and his relentless. Well, that's all it's going to allow me to read. It won't let me. I'm trying to click read more and it kind of won't let me read anymore. So I don't know. But this I gave 3 stars because I enjoyed only 3 of the articles in here. And those were, I believe, Mark Fu's Last Ride, um, another one about the volcano in Seattle. And then there was a third one that I really, really liked, but I read this at the beginning of the month, so I don't really remember what it was. Um, but yeah, only 3 of them. But from reading this, I knew that I wanted to read more of his work and more things like Mark Fu's Last Ride or the essay about Mount Rainier because that was the mountain or the volcano that he wrote an article on. So that's classic John Krakauer of a memoir that I rated 4 stars, and that was Paris, the memoir. It's Paris Hilton's memoir. Now, why on earth is this? This blurb is so long. A million meanings in a single name. Heiress, party girl, problem child, selfie taker, model, cover girl, reality star. There are labels that have been attached to Paris. These are labels that have been attached to Paris Hilton by others. Founder, entrepreneur, pop culture maker, innovator, survivor, activist, daughter, sister, wife, mom. These are roles Paris Hilton embraces now as a fully realized woman. Paris rose to prominence as an heiress to the Hilton hotel empire, but cultivated her fame and fortune as the it girl of the aughts, a time marked by the burgeoning 24-hour entertainment news cycle and the advent of the celebrity blog. Using her celebrity brand, Paris set in motion her innovative business ventures while being the constant target of tabloid culture that dismissively wrote her off as famous for being famous. With tenacity, sharp business acumen, and grit, she built a global empire and in the process became a truly modern icon beloved around the world. So I'm not going to read the whole blurb, but that's basically the gist of this story. And you learn a lot about Paris that I guess would give her some complexity that you wouldn't have ever guessed that she had based off of her persona because of difficulties that she went through in her childhood and a lot of the things that she went through you wouldn't have expected ever. So I rated that 4 stars. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really entertaining. Um, and I finished it in one go, listening to it through audio at work. And it was really good. It kept me going and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to be so entertaining. And actually, what made me want to listen to it was that Jack Edwards had talked about it on his YouTube channel not that long ago, where he was ranking all of the celebrity memoirs that he had read. And that was one of them. And that was the one that stuck out the most to me, and had me wanting to read it. And so I did. And I was pleasantly surprised. And so that's Paris. the memoir. And I'm going to be putting these up on the screen, the ones that I don't own or have physically in front of me. And next is a shorter work that I read. It's just a poem, and it was The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. And you know what? I have the book right here. But yeah. So the bells can be found in this volume um, of Edgar Allan Poe stories and poems. And I still have it tabbed off and everything. I thought it was really, really good and very rhythmic and just eerie. I loved it. And I rated it 4 stars. Let me check and make sure. I rated it 4 stars. And let me see if there's like a blurb for it. Oh yeah, The Bells is a heavenly onomatopoeic poem by Edgar Allan Poe, which was not published until after his death in 1849. It is perhaps best known for its diopic use of the word bells. The poem has 4 parts to it. Each part becomes darker and darker as the poem progresses, from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells in part 1 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells in part 4. Yes. I loved it. It was so good. It was so eerie. It was so fall. And I loved it. Moving right along, I read Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim, and I had high expectations for this book because pretty much I've read two. No, I've read. Yeah, I've read 3 other Elizabeth Lim books, so this one, Her Radiant Curse, would make my 4th. I read Six Crimson Cranes, and then I read her duology, uh, Spin. I have Spin the Dawn right here. Yeah, Spin the Dawn, and I think it was Unravel the Dusk. Yes. And those 3 books were excellent. I just could not put them down. And so when I went into Her Radiant Curse, I thought, okay, this should be very good. I've enjoyed every book that I've read from her thus far. Each of them have been 4 stars or more. But this one, I ended up rating it. It didn't even get 3 stars from me. I ended up rating it just 2 stars because the pacing was crazy. I didn't really like the characters. It was like sort of a romance, but there was no chemistry. I didn't really care, to be honest with you. So I'm going to read the blurb. I mean, these blurbs are so long. What the crap? Hold on a second. I'm gonna get the blurb from Amazon. Mystic. This is long too. Okay, one sister must fall for the other to rise. Chani was not born a monster, but when her own father offers her in sacrifice to the demon witch, she is forever changed. Cursed with a serpent's face, Chani is the exact opposite of her beautiful sister Vanna, the only person in the village who looks at Chani and doesn't see a monster, the only person she loves and trusts. Now at 17, Vanna is to be married off in a vulgar contest that will enrich the coffers of the village leaders. Only Chani, who's had to rely on her strength and cunning all these years, can defend her sister against the cruelest of suitors, but in doing so, she becomes the target of his wrath, launching a grisly battle royale, a quest over land and sea, a romance between sworn enemies, and the choice that will strain Chani's heart to the breaking point. So, that's basically the summary of Her Radiant Curse, and yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one. I didn't really like it. I didn't really care for it. So next, Polar opposite end of the spectrum is Angela's Ashes, which I read next, and by Frank McCourt. And I rated this 4 stars. Endued on every page with Frank McCourt's astonishing humor and compassion, this is a glorious book that bears all the marks of a classic. When I look back on my childhood, I wonder how I managed to survive it all. It was, of course, a miserable childhood. The happy childhood is hardly worth your while. Worse than the ordinary miserable childhood is the miserable Irish childhood, and worse yet is the miserable Irish Catholic childhood. So begins the Pulitzer Prize winning memoir of Frank McCourt, born in Depression era Brooklyn to recent Irish immigrants and raised in the slums of Limerick, Ireland. Frank's mother, Angela, has no money to feed the children, and Frank's father's, Malachi, rarely works, and when he does, he drinks his wages. Yet Malachi, exasperating, irresponsible, and beguiling, does nurture in Frank an appetite for one of the things he can provide, a story. Frank lives in his father's tales of I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm gonna spell it. So it's Cuchulain, who saved Ireland, and the angel of the seventh step who brings his mother's babies. Perhaps it is the story that accounts for Frank's survivals, wearing rags for diapers, begging a pig's head for Christmas dinner, and gathering coal from the roadside to light a fire. Frank endures poverty, near starvation, and the casual cruelty of relatives and neighbors, yet he tells his tale with eloquence, exuberance, and remarkable forgiveness. Angela's Ashes, endued on every page with Frank McCourt's astounding humor and compassion, is a glorious book that bears all the marks of a classic. I don't know why they repeated that again, but I agree with everything that said. This book was so good and it was funny, and it was like you have to have a special sense of humor, or you have to be a special kind of person to be able to shed light on a childhood that was as depressing as that one. And listen, I don't know if it was because I was having a bad day, but when I was listening to that book, for the first half I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to finish listening to this. This is so depressing. But his writing just kept pulling me back in, and it was so good, and I really enjoyed it. And then next we have Under an Outlaw Moon. I don't know how to pronounce this author's name. But meet Depression era newlyweds, Benny and Stella. He's reckless, she's naive, longing for freedom from tough times. They rob a bank, setting off a series of events that quickly spin out of their control. Under an Outlaw Moon is based on the true story of Depression era bank robbers Benny and Stella Mae Dixon. She's a teenage outsider longing to fit in. He's a few years older and he's trouble. Trouble. They marry, and Stella dreams of a nice house with a swing out back, while Benny figures out how much money to get to make it happen. Setting his sights on the good life, he decides to rob a bank. Taking Stella into it, he lays out a plan and teaches her to shoot. The newlyweds celebrate her 16th birthday by robbing a local bank. They pull it off, but the score is small, and Benny realizes that the money won't last long. So he plans a bigger robbery. What lies ahead is more than either of them bargained for. After J. Edgar Hoover finds out they crossed state lines, he declares them public enemies number 1 and 2, wanted dead or alive. So much for the good life. The manhunt is on, and there's little room for them to run. So this one was pretty good. And I rated it 3 stars. It was very straightforward, and very entertainment. And there was a charm that the character Benny had to him that made you want to keep reading this story and keep trying to see where everything would end up. And so that was Under an Outlaw Moon. And then we did Autumn Chill in Eutaw Springs by Rayanne Thayne, which I rated a 2-star. I didn't really care for it that much. It was only 200 pages. Autumn Chill in Eutaw Springs, I rated it a 2-star. I didn't really like it that much. And to save time, because this is about to be 30 minutes long, so let me just This is basically about a single mother whose son gets lost in these, like, I don't know, in like this cave, pretty much in his backyard in the wilderness of Utah. And it's all about them trying to find him. You get his perspective, you get the mother's perspective, and you get the lead FBI detective's perspective in this story. Yeah, very slow. I didn't really like it that much. The only thing I did like about it was when you got the son's, and I think his name was Cameron, when you got Cameron's point of view, because for some reason the author, Rayanne Thane, she seemed to write better in this perspective of a child, so that was kind of strange. But yeah, that was Autumn Chill in Utah Springs. And then I read The Long Walk by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. Um, and I rated that 3 stars. This one was just okay. Um, it was pretty good. My love for Stephen King is what kept me reading it, but I could have done without it, to be completely honest with you. And this one is about boys who sign up for this sort of walk to the death competition where they have to walk from Maine to Boston, and they cannot stop walking. And if they stop walking, they die. They get shot. If they so they have they get 3 strikes. It's kind of a 3 strikes you're out kind of deal. And if they get 3 strikes and they stop walking and they kind of slow down. Oh, and another important part of it is that they have to walk 4 miles per hour. And if they slow down and get too slow, they get strikes for that. And like I said, once you get 3 strikes, you get shot and killed. So that's The Long Walk, ladies and gentlemen, by Stephen King, which I rated 3 stars. And I think, yeah. And then the last one that I read but don't have a physical copy of, and I just finished this, was Into Thin Air, a personal account of the Mount Everest disaster by Jon Krakauer. And I rated this 4 stars. I thought it was excellent. And this is just a rundown of a disaster that happened on Mount Everest in 1996. Um, that Jon Krakauer was present for, and he went on this trip to report on it. And yeah, there was like a storm that happened, and it killed like more than half of his of the climbers that he went on this expedition with. And that is it for all the books that I do not own. So now we're going to get into the books that I do own, and I'm going to hold them up as I talk about them. So, first things first, we have H.P. Lovecraft's The Thing on the Doorstep and Other Weird Stories. This is a compilation, and I only read one story out of here, and it was called Beyond the Wall of Sleep. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really know what the hell this was about. I skimmed through it cuz I wasn't really liking it. It was about this wild man who like murders people. I don't know what the hell it was about. I didn't like it though. I rated it like 2 stars. Um, and then next we have Supernatural Nevermore, which is what got me wanting to read The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe, because one of the mysteries they were trying to solve in this book hinged heavily on that writing, The Bells, and a couple other Edgar Allan Poe pieces, but that was the one that stood out the most to me. And and I rated this one just 3 stars. It was okay. It was entertaining. I liked it. It made me laugh. Of course, I loved spending time with my favorite boys, Dean and Sam. And you know what? Yeah, it's pretty good. And that's Supernatural Nevermore, ladies and gentlemen. And then next we have Harry Potter, 2 Harry Potter books, because I'm rereading the series. So we have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I think I rated. Let me check. Let me see. Yeah, I rated that 4 stars, of course. It's Harry Potter. Like, why not? Okay, so Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So I'm going to read you the blurb. For 12 long years, the dreaded fortress No. For 12 years long, the dread fortress of Azkaban held an infamous prisoner named Sirius Black. Convicted of killing 13 people with a single curse, he was said to be a dedicated follower of the Dark Lord Voldemort. Now he's escaped, and the Azkaban guards heard Black muttering in his sleep, "He's at Hogwarts, he's at Hogwarts." Is he coming for Harry? Harry Potter isn't safe, even within the walls of his magical school, surrounded by his friends, because on top of it all, there may be a traitor in their midst. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, everyone. um, and then last but certainly not least, we have Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which I did not expect to enjoy this book, but I was like, since I'm doing a reread of the Harry Potter books, let me just reread this, even though I didn't really like it. And boy, am I glad that I gave it another chance, because it was so good. So, so good. I ended up rating it 4 stars when originally I think I only gave it like 3. And it might have even been a 2.5, just because it didn't leave an impression on me the first time I read it. But this time, oh yeah, baby, it hit the mark for me. So Harry Potter wants to get away from the pernicious Dursleys and go to the Quidditch World Cup with Hermione, Ron, and the Weasleys. He wants to dream about Cho Chang, his crush, and maybe do more than dream that. He wants to find out about the mysterious event involving 2 other rival schools of magic in a competition that hasn't happened for hundreds of years. He wants to be a normal 14-year-old wizard. Unfortunately for Harry Potter, he's not normal. He's different, even by wizarding standards. And in this case, different can be deadly. So that's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I just finished that yesterday as well. So, so good. And that is all 14 of the books that. Oh, no, that's not all 14. Wait, hold on. There's one more book. There's one more. But I read this in like the middle of the month that I forgot to bring it over here with me. And that is Jennifer Lynn Barnes's The Inheritance Games. Um, Again, with this one, I don't know how many. I rated this one 3 stars. It was okay. I didn't really care about it that much, but I'm going to read the blurb. Avery Grams has a plan for a better future, survive high school, win a scholarship, and get out. But her luck changes in an instant when billionaire Tobias Hawthorne dies and leaves her virtually his entire fortune. The only catch? Avery must move into his sprawling mansion full of secret passages, riddles, and codes. Unfortunately for Avery, Hawthorne House is also occupied by the family that was just disinherited. This includes the 4 Hawthorne grandsons, dangerous, magnetic boys who grew up with every expectation that, one day, they would inherit billions. Heir apparent Grayson is convinced that Avery is a con woman, and he's determined to take her down, but his brother Jameson views her as their grandfather's last hurrah. A twisted riddle and a puzzle to be solved. Caught in a world of wealth and privilege with danger around every turn, Avery will have to play the game herself just to survive. And so that is the inheritance game. And yeah, it wasn't anything special. It went by very fast, I will say, because the chapters are very short and it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. It tries to keep you on the edge of your seat, but I don't know. I didn't really care that much, to be completely honest. But those are all of the books that I've read this month and their ratings. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Um, if you have stayed with me this long, then please consider leaving a like. Please consider leaving a comment. Maybe there's something you want to see in the future. Maybe there's a book you suggest that I read. Whatever it might be, if you have anything you want to say, just leave it down there in the comments. And also, subscribe. Because if you're here right now, I mean, you might as well do it. You might as well just subscribe and turn on your notifications as well so you can see when I upload twice a week on Sundays and Wednesdays. All right? If you want to be a local hippie too, you want to, I don't know, you want to read a book, you want to drink some chai tea, you want to hug a tree, yeah, come on over here and subscribe, okay? Hang with me. You won't regret it. I promise. I promise. And with that being said, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good evening. I hope wherever you are that you read a good book. And I'll see you when I see you.